So, when I first jumped in this game, Metasploit had it on lock. From Metasploit, it went to PowerShell Empire. From PowerShell Empire, it went to Cobalt Strike. Cobalt Strike had it for a minute. Brute Retail took over. Brute Retail had it for a minute. Sliver took over. And while Sliver was on top, Havoc crept up. And now we got these two big money heavyweights always going at it. If you look on the internet anywhere, Sliver versus Havoc, Dan Main's Unknown Artist 2023 C2 of the year. We can get this shit started right now without further ado. With Havoc, you have to compile your server, you have to compile your client binaries, and you have to install a bunch of dependencies for Go and Python. Now, I'll tell you straight up, I had a bunch of dependencies to overcome, and it took me almost 40 minutes. It was miserable. I wanted to quit several times, and I didn't, and I got it done. With Sliver, you just download the release from GitHub. All you got to do is mod that joint from there, and boom, you got yourself a Sliver C2 server. You also need to download the client so that you can use the client part. You don't really need the client part, but it's recommended so you don't fuck anything up. The point here goes to Sliver. Now, let's talk about building a listener. So when you run a listener on Havoc, it's pretty simple to go to the top, and once you get this menu, you are presented with HTTP, HTTPS, SMB, and external, I believe it is. You can set your own user agent. I don't know why the fuck you would want to do that, but if you feel so compelled, you can do that. But I think the best part about this is you get to see the options that you're working with, and that's no one, like, we don't always feel like going into a help file, bro. So the credit here has to go to Havoc for being smart here and going over the GUI. I will say though, however, it is delightfully simple to run a listener on Sliver, but there are a few annoyances that I just really don't like. We'll get into them when we talk about how to build an agent. So when you build an agent, it's similar to a listener on Havoc. You got this nice GUI. What I really love is the fact that you can control your sacrificial process. You'll see that it's named notepad.exe, but you can change this joint to service host, which I highly recommend. With Sliver, I don't see the option to do that, but I wanted to go back to my point that I was making about the fact that that gets weird with Sliver, because you started your listener with HTTPS, but then your agent is HTTP. And then you also have to put either an IP or a domain name so that it could call out to, which I guess that's nice. I would also say that compiling an agent on Sliver takes a long ass time. It takes almost like 4 or 5 minutes, like not that long, but it takes a long time compared to Havoc. Compiling your agent. I would also say that your agent on Sliver is going to be hella big. It's going to be like 100 gigs or some shit, or maybe 10. I don't know. It's just super big for a binary. I'm probably fucking that math up, but it's hella big compared to Havoc. And if I see a binary that's hella big, I'm going to instantly flag that shit as suspicious, and I'm going to hunt you down, bro. So for all of those reasons, man, I'm going to give this one to Havoc. But let's move on. Let's talk about OPSEC. Before we talk about OPSEC, if you like what you hear, if you like this real shit, subscribe and give me a like, and I appreciate you in advance. We're going to keep moving. Now, if you stay within the thread of your process, and we're going to get into what I mean in a minute, but if you run the simple netstat, simple who am I, the simple commands that are within the scope of the C2, for both C2s, they work fairly equally when it comes to OPSEC. Nothing leaks out, nothing does anything unnecessary. Now, you also have what I like to call fuck around and find out commands. These are commands that if you run these motherfucking commands, I will catch you. you can get your bitch ass caught. So when you try to do reflective DLLs or no PowerShell or what's the other one, unmanaged PowerShell, any bullshit like that, if you try to start a shell or something like that, I'm going to see it. It is going to be clearly visible in Splunk or Kibana. You're clearly going to cause a create remote thread alert or create remote thread log, and all I have to do is simply follow you with the process ID. Let's move on to add-ons. So when it comes to add-ons, Sliver has a bunch of add-ons in its armory, that's what it calls it. And it's fairly simple to install things in the armory, which is what I love. In Havoc, however, Havoc has what they call extensions, which I think the guy misspelled it. If you misspelled it, bro, do some spell check, bro. Get your shit straight, man. But yes, extensions are your add-ons. It doesn't seem very maintained because as I tried to install these joints, it wouldn't install. Doesn't really even matter here. The credit's gonna go to Havoc because Havoc has what you need already. I don't want to install shit. When I come with a C2, I want to just go. And I just don't understand why Sliver wasn't just built with these things to begin with. But yeah, I prefer Havoc here. Now I want to talk about the future and who holds the future, in my opinion, with a GUI with very visible ways to see your options and your flags in the way that you can control your listeners and your agents, as well as a nice graph to see how many machines you've pwned. Like, managers and officers like that shit. It is what it is, bro. When I think about the future is GUI. It just is what it is, bro. The future is GUI. Sliver should probably make a pay version with a GUI. GUI, fucking GUI, bro. The future has to go to Havoc. And so the winner of the contest is Havoc. You are the 2023 Unknown Artist C2 of the year. So I will just give this final feedback to 5Spider, and I will say this. You gotta spell extensions right. No, that ain't really nothing. I would say the main thing though is, for Sliver, I would say the main thing is it's not over. You know, you can continue to develop. As you continue to develop, you know, you could build a C2, or fuck, my bad. You can build a GUI, and perhaps it will be able to fuck with Havoc one day. Both of these frameworks are pretty solid. They're pretty solid, man, and they're pretty malleable. But I was skeptical about Havoc until I actually tried it out, and I'm gonna recommend it to be like the go-to move as to be a C2 this year. I think that's it. I don't got nothing else. I don't know, like, I ain't got nothing else.